Next up, we have Kelvin. And Kelvin wanted me to introduce him as just Kelvin. So, upon Kelvin's request, he's getting ready. So, what is the emotions right now? Hyped?
So next,
Sure.
got it.
Scared? Can I see it? Scared people? Optimistic people? Optimistic, okay, we have a couple of optimistic, okay, they're growing, alright, optimism is spreading, I love that. Alright, without further ado, Kelvin, go ahead and introduce yourself, give them their bio.
Alright. Hi. Yeah, so it's a bit tough coming after Ash, who's done a fantastic job, I think, giving you a very big overview about AI. Luckily for me, my presentation is almost entirely orthogonal to his. So I'm not one, even though it says outlook for AI, you'll see it doesn't say 10 years here because I'm not one for making predictions. So first, let's talk about who I am, right, and why you should care about what I have to say. So first of all, the company I represent, Qoala, we are an Insurtech. We operate in all parts of the value chain, right? So across product structuring, distribution, claims handling, and so much more. Across Southeast Asia, we are sort of pre-Series A company. We invested in by Sequoia and a couple of Indonesian institutionals. I'm about 2 years old, right? About me, so I am an engineer, yes, but I've never worked in a sort of technical role. So I am the country manager for Qoala in Malaysia. Previously, I was with Shopee and at Faith. Yeah, and that's it, right? So let's talk about AI, right? A lot of things to unpack, right? I think Will started off talking about the singularity, and there's probably a reason why people like Elon Musk say that AI is probably an extinction level threat to humanity. But there's also, I guess, if you're on the Jack Ma side of things, you also believe that AI has a lot to offer. I personally believe that AI is full of BS as it stands in society today, right? And as Ash has pointed out, the current definitions for AI can be very expensive to the point that actually you could justify calling a calculator AI, right? My personal rubric, right, when I try to figure out whether something is AI and something is new, is I think about it this way, right? Number one, could this approach be classified as basically hundreds and thousands of if-else programs, right? Is this like 1,000 if-elses, right? And is it 1,000 if-elses that you probably will look at and stare at and never be able to understand? If that's the way you see it, then I see that as AI, right? So that's how I would personally classify something as AI, right? And I'm going to structure this, I think, according to sort of two themes to the way I see AI in the world today. First one is what I consider as intelligence gradually. Normally when we think about AI, right, we always have our mind sort of general artificial intelligence that people are so scared of, the whole singularity point when the computer starts learning. The reality today is that AI today is really stupid. It's really stupid, right? The sort of you think about a human sort of growing up from a toddler to a baby to a teenager to an adult. The AI that we think about today is the AI of maybe like a 5-year-old human kid. That's the state of AI as it stands, right? Why do I say that, right? The AI that we have today is the AI that's able to perceive vision, right? You're able to look at things. You're able to point out, is this a hot dog? Is that not a hot dog? Right? I mean, it doesn't take a very smart human to determine that, right? It's the AI who's able to string together words. It's an AI who's able to do pattern recognition, right? To sort of believe that, look, I've seen this bird on my left, I know it's going to go onto my right soon, right? That's pattern recognition. This AI doesn't understand the physics of the world. It doesn't understand gravity. It doesn't understand Bernoulli's effect. It doesn't understand any fluid dynamics. It understands cause and effect. So that's the level of AI that we have. So for a lot of people out there who are going about and thinking, you know, AI is this really scary thing. It's this thing about really smart things, smart people. It's gonna change the way we understand science. Not really, right? The AI that we have is really stupid. So that's the first one. Second one then has to be about pattern recognition versus understanding. And this is where intelligence, to me, truly becomes artificial. I know it's a play on words. It's not really what it means. But pattern recognition versus understanding. Very often, an AI is going to spit out results that seems correct. But very often, that AI doesn't understand what it's spitting out, right? It's spitting out patterns that it's noticing, but out of that thousands and hundreds of thousands of if-elses that it understands. So it is implicit on us as AI operators, as humans, to not take this as gospel truth, but to really, put in the hard work and understand what we're saying. Because when it comes to very simple things, like, this AI determines what you're going to see on Shopee or on Lazada next, fine, no big deal, right? Who cares what's in the algorithm? If this AI determines whether your loan gets approved, whether you get a scholarship or not, then you really do want to understand what's going on in that AI, right? So let's move on then to a little bit then from an insurance perspective, sort of the risk of AI, and as an insurance professional, risk is always top of mind. So first question you want to do to suss out some bullshit, which is someone comes up to you and tells you, hey, I have this fantastic new AI algorithm. It's going to tell you what insurance you need to buy. First thing you do is you go up to them and you tell them that's bullshit. Because I don't need AI to tell me what sort of insurance to buy. Because insurance is hundreds of years old as an industry. I understand very well what you need to buy from an insurance perspective, right? So you don't use AI as a lazy solution to problems that already have a valid and technical solution, right? Then you move on to the next thing, right? Sure, but current technical solutions have very obvious flaws, right? In insurance, a way to determine what sort of insurance product you need to buy will also ask, okay, what is your risk level, right? What is your comfort with risk? And then you won't see this very much coming from insurance companies. You usually see it coming from startups like ourselves, who come up then with a lot of pseudoscience, right? Hey, I'm going to scan your face, you look fat, you look skinny, you look dark, you look fat or fair or whatever, and I'm going to say because of that, you probably go skydiving, you live on the wild side, you look morbidly unhealthy, so you probably don't care about risk. You're going to come up with a lot of different things, right? And to a certain extent, some of the results might make sense. But these are things where you're going to want to be a little bit careful about, right? What are you spitting out? Are you spitting out pseudoscience? Are you spitting out something that's grounded in facts or truth? Because it's very easy to come out there and say, look, I'm being disruptive, right? And I'm showing you something you've never seen in the world, and this is my AI spitting something out. But you have to be very careful what happens, right? And this is where we talk about it from a societal perspective, how you need to push back against the results of AI to make sure and put the burden of proof on the people who are pushing these solutions to you and make sure that they really understand what they're saying. Because it's not hard to come up with recommendations, right? I spit data in, something spits data out. It's not hard, right? And it probably does make sense. And this isn't an old problem, right? Just think about it. Maybe back in the early 1900s in the US, before a lot of housing reform came in, a lot of people would say, hey, the chances of you being approved for a loan or not depends on whether you're white or you're black, right? Fine. Some people can see it's obviously racist. So after all, it's not cool, right? People don't do it anymore. What do you move to, right? The chances of you being approved for a loan depends on where you stay. Now, that's not racist anymore, right? This place you stay isn't racist. But it can if you're looking at, are you coming in from Manhattan or are you coming in from Brooklyn? Or even in Malaysia, right? Imagine I had an algorithm that said your chance of you getting approved for a loan is higher if you're in PJ compared than you live in like Kampong Baru.
right? I mean, you can say, oh, look, it's locations, whatever, but it's obviously a racist algorithm. And that's what a lot of things are going to come back to us when it comes down to AI, right? So, risks and BS, how we sort of suss it out. What are we actually doing today, right? So I'm very fortunate that I actually do work in a company where we actually do use AI on a daily basis. So this is one example. Machine vision is something that we do a lot. Here's an example of how we have a smartphone insurance product, right? Before you can buy this product, you need to take a video of your phone. We'll figure out whether your phone has a screen protector on it, whether that screen protector is cracked, or whether your phone is cracked, and whether you can buy our insurance, right? Sounds very, very simple. It's a sort of a no hot dog sort of situation here, right? How is this really important? It's really important from a business model perspective because you can scale some parts of the human experience. Think about it from our perspective. Previously, when you want to buy insurance, right, you can only buy insurance on a brand new product because only at the point when it's brand new am I assured that I'm not insuring a broken product, right? Because I don't trust that I'm going to have someone there to inspect the product every time I buy. I can't do that over an online transaction, right? I can't be assured that you haven't broken your phone and suddenly call me up and hey, Qoala, can you please insure my broken phone, right? And then suddenly you claim and it's like, haha, I just stole money from Qoala, right? That doesn't happen. But now with this, I can sell insurance online for certain classes of products. Let's bring you to another example then, right? You can take that same machine vision and now you can be a little bit more complex, right? I can bring it to cars. I can say, look, you just got into an accident, right? Let's take pictures of every part around your car and figure out, what? Is this broken? How much is this broken? What's it going to cost to fix? And we've done a second thing here, right? The first problem we solved was basically a hot dog, no hot dog kind of moment, which is just, what? A 5-year-old kid can do, right? You just have to figure out, is this cracked or not? Now we're solving a problem that requires someone who's a lot more trained, right? Who at least has gone through, a couple of hours, 10, 20, 40 hours of training to understand, is this broken? What's it going to cost to fix? And we can do that now, right? So these two things are, I think, biggest examples of how we use AI in our work today. Machine vision. How do you replace sight? Or how do you replace inspection? And then the next question for us is, what else can you inspect? I'm going to bring you to another one, right? So we also do agriculture insurance. You'll be funny. It's quite funny, right? Because this is actually also machine vision at a certain point. Instead of a camera, instead of eyes, I'm using satellites, looking down at the Earth. And instead of looking at sort of the sort of normal UV spectrum, I'm looking at the reflective spectrum coming back from the leaves. And I'm able to figure out, right, what's the crop density at a specific area. And that helps me price insurance. But there is another part here, which is how we're looking at weather forecasting. So this is a bit tricky, right? Earlier I was talking about pattern recognition versus science versus understanding. To a large extent, for much of the world, we will never have enough data to do proper physics-based weather forecasting, to a large extent. And in these cases, we can say, look, we have to use AI, in this case, Monte Carlo simulations or some things more complex, to figure out how do I forecast the next 1 year or even a bit further out in terms of data. And this is a situation where we can say, look, it's fine, I'm probably not going to invest as much resources. I'm not going to invest enough understanding of the physics of my local area. AI will be good enough, right? Where does this end? Okay, sort of next viable to me, right? Everybody loves cake. We think the next thing that we use is going to be chat. We see this coming from different perspectives, right? The first one is we understand AI can understand natural language processing very easily. But we also understand that AIs don't work very well in unbounded environments. right? If you ask an AI about anything, it doesn't work. But in the cases where we see Google Assistant, Siri, and Alexa, etc., if you keep it in a very bounded environment, you limit what they can ask, how they can respond, humans actually interact with these things pretty well. And we think this is probably, if you look at it from machine vision to speech, this is probably the next big AI that's going to become mainstream, right? That's actually all I have for you guys. I'm not here to talk about the singularity. I'm not here to talk about the next 10 years. This is what I see actually as a practitioner and as a CEO to understand what actually works commercially today and hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, biased mic check. Biased mic working. Right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, this one big question. What is if and else? We're not all coders, man. Here. Come on, man. Even he did the same thing. Why you guys do this?
I
understand what just.
Sure. I mean, and if else is just if you write a piece of code that says if something happens, then this thing happens, right? So it goes if or else this, right?
Yeah. So you're giving choices based on a specific set of situations.
Yeah. So if you do understand the very basics of how we look at AI today, right? I mean, you can look at things like neural networks. You can look at things like random forests and other clustering. What happens is basically you give a machine a ton of data. The machine builds up its own sort of logic internally, and then it spits out an output, right? So the logic that they have internally, if you think about a machine that changes an input to an output, inside is just a bunch of rules that they're creating to process, right? So you can look at this as very simply in terms of a recommendation algorithm, right? Someone has looked at diapers recently, somebody has looked at milk bottles recently, they're probably a mother, they're probably going to get this, right? You build tons of rules. Or even something like the way you would do, say, unlocking your phone with your face, right? Someone's built an algorithm understanding that, look, if I look at an image, this part is your face, this part is your nose, this part is your eye, this is how you interlock everything, right?
Instagram filters.
Yeah, Instagram filters, right?
Yeah. Alright, but for these cases, we don't need actually to understand the logic and reasoning behind it, but as you said, sometimes we need to understand the logic and reasoning.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand how someone is coming up with a solution, right? Because that gives you, because come on, right? I mean, we're not all in school anymore where you take everything at face value, right? I mean, nowadays, if anybody comes up to me and says anything, I'll be like, what's your proof, right? What's your basis? What's your recommendation? Why are you saying this? And the more you understand about how somebody is generating a recommendation, the more you understand, how likely it is to be correct, or how likely it is to be wrong.
All right. So sorry. Do you guys have any questions before I go on ranting? Then does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
I have a question regarding on the insurance.
Okay. Your voice can reach.
Yes. So you have mentioned just how you guys can able to recognize a car, how damage is it to give, estimate how much data will it require at the minimum to at least to be able to at least have the AI to basically detect the amount. Although as we know, the more the better, but what's the minimum? Because with the rise of data brokers available, how do you guys actually collect the data to see whether it's a damaged car or not?
Oh, I mean that's tough to say, right? I think from a very practical perspective, right? What happens is you need a corpus of at least thousands of images first. But even then, whenever we put something out into production, you are probably going to have a human fallback, right? In the case of sort of high-value claims, generally what happens is the AI itself is not the decision maker. The AI makes a recommendation and it still gets reviewed by a human, right? I think these are all parts of the feedback loop that make the AI better over time.
Any other questions? Okay. So if we were, there, go.
Sure.
You guys are limiting my question.
So, you mentioned earlier pattern recognition, and I think a lot of being able to predict outcomes, especially like making good decisions, like what next big idea or company to invest in, which sports team to bet on. Sometimes a lot of that involves gut feel. Is that something that and usually like those parameters don't always, like the data points don't always align to lead to that decision? Is gut feel something that you think will eventually be taught to AI?
I mean, look, in this case, I bring my engineer's hat on, like, which I don't think, I think to a large extent humans are rational machines. It's just that we usually don't understand all the different parts of the input that goes into our decisions, right? A lot of what we describe as gut feel is usually the result of past experience, is a result of what we understand of rumors, etc. Sometimes it's also the result of how we're feeling today, right? Do I feel aggressive? Do I feel passive? Do I feel bold, right? Did something good happen to me today and I'm more willing to take a risk, right? But you do strike on another thing, which again for most AI problems out there, you also have to ask, right? Is this really AI or is this just multilinear regression, right? Because if you're coming to me and telling me I'm solving a problem where there are only 5 variables, I mean that's not AI.
Any other questions? You guys can let me finally get my question through?
Yeah.
Thank you. Alright, so if in a hypothetical situation we would be able to govern AI, so what would be the basis of that? Whose values would it be? Would it be you understand what I'm coming from?
I mean, you're asking me a very deep sociological question, right? I mean, the person who governs the AI is the person who has power, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you work for a government, like let's say you work for China, and China says that religion is a terrible thing, right? AI, the AI that China creates will probably view religion negatively, regardless of what the AI says, right? I mean, if for instance, right, something in this AI that you could understand produced a result that was contrary to the Communist Party's beliefs, you can pray and you can believe that by the time it goes into production, it is going to conform to the beliefs of the Communist Party, right? So, in which case, as I said, it is always very important to understand the AI so that you're not pushing out a result that is contrary to what you yourself believe, especially if you are in the position to have power over whatever the AI is deciding, right?
Alright, so as individuals, what can we do? You mentioned that in your slides. As an individual, how can I refute BS? Help refuting BS, whether am I technical or non-technical?
I mean, I think, look, I mean, as individuals, the first thing you always remember is that is AI operating in a field where there is already a valid answer, right? So I'll go back to my one slide where I was talking about the 2 themes I would cover, and I put it in a forest. Right? The reason why that slide is in the forest is because AI is only useful when you are lost. If you have a situation where there is a valid roadmap to get yourself out of there, AI is probably never the best answer, right? Because AI is something that builds the map. And a map by nature, you understand, is never straight, right? So you want to be in a position where if you really are lost, then sure, use AI.
Valid.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, speakers clash. I'm gonna get out of here.
No, I'm curious. How do you handle for situations where you might not know that you're lost?
Well, I think it just depends. That's an economics question, right? It's like, you know, what's the best solution to get there, and do I have enough resources to explore the solution? Right? I think very often, if you're working for a large company, you can afford to hire, microeconomists or behavioral scientists, etc. If you're working for a small company, you might just decide, you know what, I don't care what the science says. I just want to find a good enough approximation for it. And I think just keep that in mind. Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
My question is more related to patent.
Yeah.
For example, let's say your company already developed a model.
Can you get him to repeat the question later? Oh, okay.
My question is more related to patents. If let's say your company found a device or created in a model, and you have your own data for that, but let's say you already tune the model to be making big profit for the company, do you patent that model? First question. Second question is, models, you always feed it with new data. So every day you got new data feeding into the model. And if you can patent your model, how does that work with the daily update of data? Does the patent work only for backtracking? Like maybe you patent it for last year. You say it's a different model because you got new data. Do you patent it again, or how does it work?
Okay, so in this case, first I need to qualify that I'm not a patent lawyer, right? I think generally it'd be very hard to patent a model because in the case of what you're describing, you're not creating new mathematics. What you're doing is you're finding new sources of data to put into existing mathematics, right? So if you imagine how you're going to write your patent application, right? What usually people would describe is the mathematics that goes into the model. But in your case, I mean, the mathematics is standard, right? You just can't describe or you can't patent the parameters. That's my point of view. But of course, the good thing, which I think that's what you brought up is fantastic, is a lot of AI, as we know, machine vision and natural language processing, the things that are going commercial right now, the concepts and the science are becoming mainstream, but the sources of data are not. Which is why nowadays you can still see so many startups out there which are looking at my AI is the machine vision of this, right? Of figuring how to pick crops, of figuring out whether you have cancer, of figuring out how to pick something up in a factory. It's all machine vision, but it's all trained on different data sets. It's all tuned for specific purposes. And I think it's a fantastic place to be in.
Alright, we good? Okay, same question. How do we reach you if we want to ask more questions?
Sure. So I'm sorry, I just skipped past the last slide. My email is
Just go back.
Kelvin at...
there we go.
there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Alright.
keep on screwing it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Alright, so that's my email, Kelvin at Qoala.my. Happy to just answer any questions there. Right? And just come and reach out to me after this all ends. Yeah, I have name cards and all that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wait. Same thing goes. We'll give you a book personalized. Right.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you, Will. Thank you. I think this goes to you.